As a fan, you have luxury. 3 of the top 6 scorers in the playoffs are in this game.
I'm not gonna lie, when the Kevin Durant trade went down, a part of me felt like the entire West ran through the Phoenix Suns. I mean, they had the most dominant team on paper. But fortunately, that's why the games are played, and it looks like, at least based upon the way we saw the Phoenix Suns season end, they are far from a complete project. Now, we're gonna break down all of this before we get to the content. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. You guys already know I'm a huge fan of sports memorabilia. I mean, duh. Which is why I'm very excited to partner with Pristine Auction, which is the most trusted sports memorabilia and collection site. Auctions start at just $1, with thousands of items ending daily. For example, they currently have a Desmond Bane signed jersey going for just $20. Deals like this are happening all the time, and they have just about every player that you could want. They also have a marketplace, iOS and Android app, so you can win items no matter where you are. Every item on pristineauction.com comes with a certificate of authenticity from the industry's most reputable authenticators. And they're hooking up my subscribers fat. Right now, when you use my promo code MIKEROPHONE at Pristine Auction, you'll automatically be entered for a giveaway for a Shaquille O'Neal signed Lakers replica championship trophy. In addition to that, when you use my promo code MIKEROPHONE, you'll get $10 off at Pristine Auction. That's a hell of a lot of value. So make sure you go to pristineauction.com and use my promo code MIKEROPHONE so you can get $10 off and be entered into a giveaway for a Shaquille O'Neal signed Lakers replica championship trophy. And thank you, Pristine Auction, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Phoenix Suns have been an absolute dumpster fire for the last year and a half. I mean, it seems like ever since they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA Finals, things have been bumpy to say the least, especially for a team that came out of the West a few years ago, especially considering the fact that the core remained intact. As a matter of fact, I would say that the Phoenix Suns made the right decision since then. Yes, extending Chris Paul, paying him a 4-year, $120 million contract despite him being 36 years old, definitely was an interesting decision. But what were you gonna do? Just let him walk away and just decide to punt on the core of Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton with Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson and Jay Crowder? Well, the Phoenix Suns decided to take the ultimate swing after the report on Robert Sarver came out alleging workplace misconduct against him and forcing him to sell the team to Matt Ishbia. Matt Ishbia wasted no time in trying to put together the best product possible. I mean, this was near Mikhail Prokhorov, like when Mikhail Prokhorov first bought the Brooklyn Nets and then decided to gut out the entire team and its future assets to bring in Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry, and Paul Pierce. This was pretty much on that level, as Kevin Durant was begging for a trade to the Phoenix Suns since the summer of 2022. And finally, after a messy season for the Brooklyn Nets, they finally granted his wish. Kevin Durant was traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Phoenix Suns for a package that was based around Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 4 unprotected future first-round picks. This was announced in the middle of the night, and this set the entire NBA world ablaze. I mean, you have Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and Kevin Durant on the floor with one another, coached by Monty Williams, with some pretty good role players as well in the form of Cam Payne, Jock Landale. Now, this was supposed to be a band-aid for the Phoenix Suns. Bear in mind, going all the way back to last year, the Phoenix Suns lost in the second round of the playoffs in a humiliating Game 7 loss to the Dallas Mavericks, which they were expected to win, by the way, where Phoenix was losing by as many as 43 points in the second half. And things were made even worse when Monty Williams benched DeAndre Ayton in the third quarter. What people assumed was the fact that Monty Williams and DeAndre DeAndre Ayton didn't see eye to eye. Bear in mind that DeAndre Ayton was also in the midst of a heated contract extension discussion with the Phoenix Suns. Typically, the first overall pick, if he's playing above average to average, which DeAndre Ayton was, they're usually in line for a max contract extension. But the Phoenix Suns weren't willing to give DeAndre Ayton a max contract extension. They were willing to pay Mikal Bridges, who was in the same draft class as DeAndre Ayton, but not Ayton. So things were getting really dicey between the Suns and DeAndre Ayton, and this benching may have been the icing on the cake during last year's playoffs. But surprisingly, when the Indiana Pacers signed DeAndre Ayton to a contract sheet, the Phoenix Suns matched. And that made things even more interesting because you would have moments where DeAndre Ayton clearly seemed sad about being on the Phoenix Suns. It was even shown during media day.
I was happy. It was all done, I guess.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay.
Tell me, does this look like the face of a man that is actually happy? Well, throughout the season, the Phoenix Suns would clearly have their hiccups. They got off to a rough start. Jay Crowder refused to play for the Phoenix Suns. DeAndre Ayton and Monty Williams got into another heated exchange on the sideline in the middle of December. Nothing was going right for this team before the trade of Kevin Durant. And even once they traded for Kevin Durant, well, things didn't necessarily immediately go right either. Yeah, sure, they were able to make a push to the 4th seed in the Western Conference, but it felt like this was a wobbly wagon that could break at any moment. And it seemed like once the Phoenix Suns were able to get through the first round of the NBA playoffs, that's exactly what happened. One of my followers, Legends_NBA, who has a YouTube channel where he does lip readings of NBA players, I highly recommend you go check him out because his content's awesome, did a lip reading of the Phoenix Suns huddle, and primarily between Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. And if there is one thing that has been a consistent theme here, you could clearly tell that there is a question about DeAndre Ayton's commitment to the game and his intensity and his focus. Watch. So when we found out that DeAndre Ayton was going to get pulled for this pivotal Game 6 at home, by the way, and Jock Landale was going to play instead of him, Phoenix Suns fans actually rejoiced. They actually felt like Jock Landale had a better chance of stopping Nikola Jokic, who's playing out of his mind, by the way, and that this was going to be a positive for the team.
It's tough for me to sit back and just be okay with all the slander that's thrown DA's way. People are making him out to be like he's a selfish individual who is playing terribly all the time and hurts the Phoenix Suns, but it's DeAndre Ayton. Like DA's had 30 and 20 games on the regular for a month at a time for us this season. He's held down some big time areas of games for us throughout the year, and I'm kind of sick of hearing about everyone shitting on him nonstop. It's not.
Well, the furthest couldn't be from the truth. As a matter of fact, it was actually a repeat of what happened last year, more or less. In a game where the Phoenix Suns were clearly fighting for their season, they got absolutely decimated by the Denver Nuggets. And it seemed like nobody was there. I mean, their entire team disappeared. Like at halftime alone, Devin Booker only scored 11 points off of 4 of 12 shooting. Kevin Durant only had 8 points off of 2 of 11 shooting. And I know we're all celebrating the fact that this appears to be yet another failed Kevin Durant super team. But at a specific point, man, I kind of feel bad for Devin Booker and the rest of the Phoenix Suns. I feel bad for Chris Paul. I mean, they seemed so hell-bent on finally being able to win a championship together. And it appears as though that isn't going to happen, at least not this year. And the Phoenix Suns definitely have some serious questions about what they have to do about their future. I mean, clearly the DeAndre Ayton situation and the fit there might be questionable, at least in the playoffs. It seems like if the Phoenix Suns want to do some damage in the playoffs, they need a more defensive-minded center. DeAndre Ayton's fantastic, by the way. I wanted to let you guys know, I think offensively, he's one of the most talented centers in the entire NBA, who has a versatile skill set, and it seems like the big man is coming back in the NBA. And I think DeAndre Ayton could be one of those big men one of these days. But since the Phoenix Suns have a championship window right now, they're not exactly focused on developing DeAndre Ayton's game. They're not necessarily trotting him out in the middle of the regular season and telling him to try some new stuff in order to help him evolve as a player, which ideally you would be doing with the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. But the Phoenix Suns didn't really have that opportunity because after the Chris Paul trade, their window of opportunity to compete was swung wide open, and you got to take that opportunity to compete. So I don't really blame them for this situation. I feel like DeAndre Ayton could be a phenomenal talent on a different team, which is why I felt like he was so disappointed during NBA Media Day when he was returning to the Phoenix Suns. Because although that means he's on a better team, it's not necessarily the best thing for his career. But regardless, he signed a 4-year, $133 million contract, and he's going to be in Phoenix for the next 4 years. Kevin Durant's under contract for a prolonged period of time. Chris Paul's under contract. Devin Booker's under contract. So my very first answer to how to fix the Phoenix Suns would simply be you just got to run it back. You swung a huge trade for Kevin Durant in the middle of the season. You don't want to waste years of Kevin Durant because there's obviously that as well. You have 2 aging Hall of Famers on your team with an infusion of tremendous youth as well. But you also acquired one of those Hall of Famers in the middle of the trade deadline. In addition to this, you have to figure out something to do with Chris Paul and the fact that he gets injured almost each and every time he makes it to the playoffs. And in my head, as an NBA fan, every time the playoffs come around, I'm like, oh, Chris Paul's gonna get injured. I'm like desensitized to it at this point, which I know it's kind of messed up to say, but I'm just telling you like it is. It seems like since the dawn of time, every single time Chris Paul has an opportunity to win a championship, he usually gets injured at the worst time. I don't know how you solve that. It's just an observation at this point. I do want to make a point that obviously in this game that the Phoenix Suns got decimated in, they didn't have DeAndre Ayton, they didn't have Chris Paul. There's definitely a lack of familiarity between Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and the rest of the Phoenix Suns as well. I think it's a little bit too quick to say the trade was a horrific mistake, but I don't necessarily blame people for celebrating Kevin Durant's downfall because he once again did everything he possibly could to get to a super team, and seeing him fail despite doing that is kind of satisfying as NBA fans. Do I think this is the end of the Phoenix Suns? No, not necessarily. I think they have a pretty good chance at competing, especially once they get a full offseason with each other. I think the trade was still the right trade to make. It was a good swing by Matt Ishbia. And we'll see how it goes during the offseason in regards to other decisions that they decide to make in terms of improving their team. Do they try to bring back DeAndre Ayton? Do they try to trade DeAndre Ayton because he doesn't get along with Monty Williams? Do they fire Monty Williams? There's a lot of questions that need answering. And we'll make sure to keep you guys updated during the offseason. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.